Bam! Welcome back, everybody. What's up? $25 Studio, Carolina Keith, Professor Keith, whatever you want to call me. We're going to talk a little bit about trend identification today, how to identify a trend, why it's so darn important, and what you need to look for. Let's get into it. All right, so we talk about trend identification all the time on live streams and stuff, and people don't quite pick up on what I'm talking about. I was on James Pelton, did a couple different AMAs or whatever you want to call them already, where I kind of talked about trend identification, but I wanted to make a shorter, more compact video. It kind of explains it for the instructional videos here. This will be one of the instructional videos. Some of them are older. This one is very much newer, so just bear with me a bit here. However, trend identification is paramount to understanding what's happening and making better decisions. If you're not identifying the trend, you are missing what's happening. It's very important that we don't buy downtrends, that we only buy uptrends. And I'll kind of explain what we mean in a moment. So I'm going to be using XRP here. XRP is a very old chart. It goes all the way back to 2013 from what I have here on the screen. You'll see what I'm saying. Let's get into it. All right, first things first here. As you see on the screen, I've got XRP USD pulled up, nice and visible for you. Couple key points to hit on first. I'm going to move my camera out of the way so you can see. Right down here in the bottom right corner is log mode or logarithmic mode. This needs to be turned on or highlighted in blue. If it is not turned on or highlighted in blue, you will not be able to accurately identify your trend. I'm going to show you the difference between log mode or logarithmic mode and linear mode now. So let me turn my camera back off here. We're currently in logarithmic mode. Let me put it in linear mode. As you see, the trends are much different now. The candles are way different sized. Well, why is that? Well, quite simply, logarithmic mode changes the numbers over here so that the scale all fits on the screen together. And if you do linear mode, you simply wouldn't have the room to look at all this in one spot. You just wouldn't have the room for that. Linear mode essentially takes the candles and compresses them a bit to get them to all fit on the screen together. And we don't want that. Logarithmic shows us the actual candle size and the actual candle movement all at once so that we can properly identify the trend and we can properly see what we're doing all at once. Now that we've got the chart set up correct and we're in logarithmic mode, we're on monthly time frame here. We're going to start on a high time frame always, and we're going to work our way down from there and identify what we've got going on. All right, so it's important to understand that when you're identifying a trend, you're looking for reversals here. We're going to find these reversals and we're going to mark them. And after we mark them, we're going to get a consensus, and that consensus is going to tell us what to do, okay? In the previous video you saw, there's candle structure, and I told you that we're going to mark candle bodies to find support and resistance. And if we get wicks touching, that's great, but the candle bodies are what we're really looking for here, okay? So just the same way on trend analysis, we're going to look for candle bodies to show us reversal areas, and those reversal areas will show us where we're going to mark and look for our trend identifiers. All right, couple text bubbles on the screen here. There are only two types of trends, okay? I want you to understand there are only two types, uptrend and downtrend. You will hear people make an argument for sideways as a trend or crabbish. I'm okay with that. However, that doesn't make you much money or any money at all, one of the two. And as such, I'm going to count that as downtrend. Unless it makes me money, it's not an uptrend. All right. Now, obviously, you can short. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're just doing trend identification. We have two things to discuss here. For an uptrend, which is what we want. Okay. We all want the price to go up so that we can all make money. You need two things. You need a higher high plus a higher low. That together creates an uptrend. Vice versa, for a downtrend, which is what we don't want, you have a lower high plus a lower low. That all equals downtrend, okay? Let's go to the chart here, dig around for a second, identify some reversals, see if we can't figure out whether it was an uptrend or a downtrend. All right, zoomed in a little tighter here. Let's go looking for candles. I'm going to look for groups of candles if I can. If I can find a group of candles that all have candle bodies that kind of line up together, Excellent. That's what I'm going to use as a marker. The more, the merrier. All right. So right off the bat, just like a book, we're going to read from left to right. Okay. We're going to read from left to right here. We are not going to read the other way and try to do hindsight analysis. Hindsight analysis does not work. You'll not see me talk about Elliott waves or other type of things that I'll use hindsight analysis because of that. I don't want to have to go back and say, oh, well, this is why it happened. No, I want to be ahead of that or right on time. Don't want to be late. What's the point in being late? So right off the bat, I see a group of candles right here that I'll open and close roughly on the same line. Now, I real quick want to say this so you can understand where I'm coming from here. You don't have to be perfect with this. Just get close, right? We're not trying to be rocket surgeons. We're just getting close. The closer you get, the better, obviously. But let's be honest, most people can't even try. They don't even try to read a chart. What you're going to do is already going to be so far ahead of everyone else that you're going to win anyway. So just getting close here is good enough, right? Now, we've already marked one area where we had red to green and green to red to red to green. Let's just call that one spot, right? We have another reversal right here that's pretty obvious. This goes to show you a point here. From left to right, we had a low and a high and a low. It's really, really tight together. And when you're unsure about things, don't overwhelm yourself. Just move on to the next point. We can clearly see here that there was a previous point that was high. That's a clear and present reversal right there. So now we have 2 points. Let's read from left to right and keep going and see what we come up with. All right. Keep reading downward and downward and downward. And right here we have another reversal. Now we have 3 points. Now we can start to see a somewhat idea of a trend. Let's write it out here. This is a low. I'll put an L for that. This is a high. Not very complicated so far. We have 3 points. We have one more to identify. We have a low and then a high. And we have another low down here. However, this one's lower than the last one. So that equals a lower low. Not great. Since we now have a low, a high, and a lower low, well, which one does that go in? That clearly goes in the downtrend category. Lower low. Nothing about that over here. We have half of a downtrend. But Keith, you don't understand. You're missing something. Buy the dip. Buy the dip is not a real strategy. Okay, it's just what people do when they don't know what to do. And since we know better than that, well, let's do better than that. This is obviously a monthly chart. And yes, there will be daily buys and sells in on this chart. However, I'm going to warn you, if you want to buy the daily chart here in a monthly downtrend, you'd better be ready to sell just as fast as you bought. Otherwise, you're going to get burned by the much larger move that's going on that you failed to recognize. All right, let's go back to the monthly chart and keep reading. Now, I had this low. After I had this high, we'll keep reading to the right. Right here, we have another one. Oh, I clicked text. I'm sorry. Drawing tool. Right here, we have another point. Again, I'm not sure. It's very tiny. So I'm just going to skip it and move on to something I can clearly see, which is this point up here. Now, that's another high point from this one, isn't it? Yes. However, it's not as high as the last one. It's actually lower than the last high. That's a lower high. Not great. We got a lower low and a lower high. Folks, that is a 100% downtrend. You can't miss it or mistake it right here. Lower low, lower high, downtrend. Say it one more time for you, downtrend. Remember what we don't buy? We don't buy downtrends. We buy uptrends. And since we don't have an uptrend here, we don't buy. Now, real quick, let me speak on liquidity. It's been, so far on this chart, 2013 to December 2014. So you've had about a year and a half of time here where you really didn't need to buy anything. if you buy this, you got to sell it quickly, which most people are just now learning how to do. So you probably wouldn't have done it. You would have just bought and held. Your money is tied up in this, especially if you buy anywhere near here. If you buy this upper area here at 2.5 cents and it goes down any, you're stuck. You don't want to take a loss. So what do? You leave your money in because you don't want to take a loss. Well, now your money's tied up and you can't even get it out if you wanted to because now it's stuck in a loss. You don't want to lose it, so you don't sell it. You leave it in there. And your money gets stuck, and your money gets stuck, and you just add to it, and you never actually reap any of the benefits of investing. All right? It's important to understand liquidity, and when you don't have any, you can't buy when the right time comes. I will be able to buy when the right time comes, and I want you to be able to do the same. So don't get stuck in these dumb trades. Don't fall for the bait. Be smart. All right, so we left off here at this lower high. Let's keep reading to the right. Clearly, we have a reversal here. Hey, that's cool. This is a higher than the previous low, isn't it? Nice. Since it's higher than the previous low, it's a, you heard me right, higher low. Excellent. The first time we've had one of those. That is half of an uptrend. Excellent. What else do we need? We need a higher high. Then we'll have an uptrend. Well, what do we get next? After this little move, we get this flat spot right here, and that is a... It's not a higher low. That's a lower high. That's half of a downtrend. Not great. Half of an uptrend, half of a downtrend, all of nothing. So we don't do anything. We wait. I know it's hard sitting on your hands, but it's important to do this. Shortly after that, we get another low here. Keep clicking the wrong thing, sorry. We get another low here. Not great. That's a lower high. Let's label it for you so you can clearly see it. Lower high. Followed shortly thereafter by a, I'm sorry, that was a lower low. This one is a lower high. And this is actually a lower low right here. There we go. Fixed. No one got hurt, so we're good. Keep reading here. Hey, this looks like a higher low, doesn't it? Excellent. We've only ever had one of those before. Higher low. That's half of an uptrend, if you remember. Then, shortly after that, we get, hey, wait a minute. That's a higher high. A higher low and a higher high. That's your first potential uptrend in the first time in history for XRP that you got an uptrend that you think may have finally happened. It's been 2013 August till September 16, 3 years you waited for this to happen. And here it is, a higher low and a higher high and uptrend. Excellent. So let's mark it and go a little deeper, shall we? All right, we think we have an uptrend. How do we be sure? How do we lock it in and know that? Now it's time to draw a trend line. Remember I said you want to use both parts of those candles in that previous video on candle structure. Now you're going to use the wicks. You used candle bodies last time. Now we're going to use wicks. We think we have an uptrend. I want to confirm it. Now I'm going to go back and mark everything trend-wise that I've already found to be true. We know back here, and by the way, I drew a circle on where I think the uptrend is. So this is the chart part we're going to identify in a moment, right? So I already identified all of this as downtrend. If you remember, if you scroll back just a little bit in the video here, you'll see me do that again. This is all downtrend. That means it needs to be under a trend line. We think we have an uptrend over here. If that's the case, it needs to be over a trend line. If either one of those things aren't true, then you don't have it marked correctly. Go back and reread it, okay? Take your time and do it again. I'm going to start by pulling a trend line here on what I know to be downtrend. I'm going to start at the top. I know this was part of our downtrend because we just identified that. I know this was part of it. I know this was part of it. All that needs to be under the trend line. If it's not, well, then your trend is inaccurate, right? If I pull it to here because I think this is where the trend broke, sure. But don't you remember all this was downtrend and all this was downtrend and all? Okay, it's important to not miss the big moves. Let's get it all under the trend line. If I keep touching this point here, I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm going to use the ray tool. I'm going to start here. I'm going to pull to this wick. And as you see, the line is drawn for me. What do you know? Just when we think we had an uptrend, this candle broke the trend line for the first time ever, helping confirm our uptrend. Now, secret for you, about 80% of the time when a trend line breaks, it tends to sit on top of the trend line. If it breaks up, if it breaks down, it tends to test the bottom. It tends to test the bottom of the trend line. Here, you have the exact thing happen. Breaks the trend line, and then tests and tests and tests and tests. All these tests help confirm what we've already known. Now, obviously, you get one big humongous wick here, which is a little bit of an outlier as compared to the rest of the chart. It is a real wick. It really happened. However, nothing's perfect here. And all I see is when I see this big humongous wick, like we talked about in the last video, is buy pressure. It never closed back under this trend line. It almost did, but it didn't. And almost is only good enough for hand grenades, horseshoes, and nuclear weapons. Now, we've identified the monthly trend and we think we have an uptrend. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's go one time frame down. All right, same circle, only now I'm on a weekly chart. So we're going to do the exact same thing here that we did on the monthly, only we're going to do it a little bit more rapid, okay? We clearly had a high here. We clearly had a low here. We clearly had a little mini high here. Not good though. It's a lower high, isn't it? That's right. And we had a lower low here. It appears we have a downtrend, doesn't it? On the weekly time frame as compared to monthly like we did a moment ago. By the way, we've reduced this chart, which was 3.5 years old, to April 16 to March 17. We've knocked off 2 years worth of time, and now we're just looking at some weeks here, okay? We can knock this circle down even smaller by reducing it down to where this little trend is that we just identified, which is right here. We've seen the high, the low, the lower high, and the lower low. We can draw a trend line right there like we just did on the monthly chart. Grab our ray tool, same thing to that little wick right there. And as you see, we broke trend right over here. This was indeed a falling wedge. And that trend broke, and when it broke, it took off, right? And we missed all that. Wrong. Let's reduce the chart down to this spot right here. Now we've done the same thing on the monthly as the weekly now. We found our little trend right here. We identified it. We drew a line. Now we can keep moving forward. We see we broke the trend back here. So now our point of focus will be back here where this trend happened. Right here. Now we've reduced this chart down from 3 years to about 5 weeks. Let's step it down to the next time frame, which is daily. Okay, important note here. Please understand we've moved this chart down from 3 years to about 4 weeks. It's very much easier to find where to buy and sell now with zero indicators on the screen. From this point, you haven't watched a single indicator video yet. It's all been basics, chart setup, etc., etc., etc. Okay. You can add indicators at this point to buy and sell with. You've identified that you have some sort of an uptrend on both the monthly and the weekly. And now we're about to do daily. Please understand that you have more of a grip on this thing now than most people do. And you can start to use your buy sell indicators. I'm not going to do it yet. I'm just showing you the trend for the video. All right, back to the chart. Clearly here, we came down, we broke trend, and this was our area of focus. Let's move our area of focus down to just this little segment right here. We've turned this very, very large chart into a very, very small chart. We've reduced our target from a broad, humongous spectrum down to a very, very, very small circle. And because of that, we're able to make a much better decision than those who don't do this. This is very simple, folks. You don't have to overcomplicate the wheel. It's still a wheel. Now, clearly we broke trend. Clearly we bounced on top of it. Almost any one of these days would have been the right time to buy. You're bouncing on top of a trend line that you broke, that was broken on the monthly and the weekly, and now looks good on the daily. We'll stop here for trend identification. That's all it takes. You can do this down as low as you want to. You can go all the way down to the 1 minute charts if you'd really, really like to. I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to show you monthly, weekly, and daily like you've just seen here. There's your reason. All right, the reason is I don't want you to get suckered into low time frames. They get lost in the bigger moves. Whenever you're buying down all the way down on the 5 minute chart and you're trying to make trend lines and you're trying to find a broken trend, that's great and all, but you're going to lose sight of the bigger picture. And I want everyone to stick to monthly, weekly, daily for now, because until you get a great grasp of everything going on, it's really not necessary to dabble down there on the low time frames. It's really not. You can do just as well on the monthly, weekly, and daily. And for anyone who's beginning or starting, I think this is the best thing to do. You can make it far more complicated later, but I don't think that's the best thing to do yet. All right, so I hope this video helps everybody out a little bit. It's crucial to do trend identification. I talk about this all the time. It's the #1 piece to the tools, right? Once you find the trend, everything else goes around that. Buy up trends, sell down trends, be smart. If you're gonna play around in a downtrend, right now we're in a downtrend. It's currently August 29th, 2022. If you're gonna buy these downtrends, you better be ready to sell very rapidly. And if you're not, you're gonna lose. So thank you. Next instructional video will go over some indicators. If you need anything, let me know. Our link to the Discord will be down below. We talk about this stuff all the time in the Discord. It's free if you want to be in the general chat. If you want to get all the information, including Zoom calls and voice chats that we do all throughout the week, hit the subscribe. Go ahead. Got LaunchPass link or Patreon, whichever one you'd like. LaunchPass is better in my opinion. Thank you all. I'll see y'all in the next instructional video. Peace.